He'll outlet it to Phyllis on the far side wing to McCuen. Top of the three, lets it fly, and he knocks it down. Gets it over to Phyllis. Phyllis takes a quick jumper as he takes the catch. Can't get it. Hughes is there for the rebound for Otterbein, and he's there for the putback right of the rim. And it's intercepted away by Chase Moyer that time, who picked his back pocket. Moyer with a no-look bounce pass to McKenzie on the right side of the rim, and McKenzie gets it to fall. Fakes a pass. Now he penetrates towards the basket. Kicks it out free throw line. Three on the way from the corner for Chase Moyer, and he's able to knock it down.
From the studios of 33 College View, it's time for the Todd Adrian Coaches Show here on WOBN 97.5. Here is your host, David Kinder.
Good afternoon, and we welcome you to the season's inaugural Todd Adrian Coaches Show here on WOBN 97.5. I'm your voice of the Cardinals, David Kinder. Joining me in studio, third-year head basketball coach and namesake of the show, Todd Adrian, and Otterbein junior forward Marc McCuen. And today's show is brought to you in part by Westerville Automotive. Serving the Westerville area for 20 years, they have two locations on Westerville Road and in the Uptown area, just seconds away from Otterbein on Main Street. They're on the web at westervilleautomotive.com. You can follow them on Facebook at Westerville Automotive Uptown or call them at 614-890-6700. The basketball Cards currently sit at 3-12 on the year, are tied in the OAC for 7th place with a league mark of 2-6. And Coach and Mark, before we dive too much into the season and the show, I just want to thank you for coming down to the studios to do this show. We started it during the football season with the Tim Daub Coaches Show. We've carried it over into basketball season, and it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, David, thanks for having us. It's exciting to be here. 2015, starting something new, New Year's resolution, if you will, to try and keep the Cardinal faithful a little bit more informed about the men's basketball program. I know Coach Daub did a great job in the fall, and we're just excited to keep it going. You can listen to our every episode throughout the rest of the basketball season right here on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock. Coach, let's talk about the season as a whole thus far. We're 15 games into the year, a little bit more than halfway. I've had a chance to see every game this year, talk with you after every game on the post-game show ever since the first game of the year up at Hiram. Since then, overall, throughout the whole progression of the year, what's the overall grade so far? It's really tough to give us a grade right now. You know, if you're a classic TV fan, I feel a little bit like Hawkeye Pierce in the MASH episodes with the triage that we've been doing with our guys. It's been and not only are we a young group, not having a lot of experienced guys returning from last year, but we've been a very injured group. So about the time we start to be able to get everybody into practice, and right there that first month when we weren't playing any games, you know, we were fairly healthy. Except for Grant Fenner, a returning starter, you know, tore a tendon in his finger. He was out the majority of that first month. It seems like every time we start to get some traction and some practice time together, something else happens and we lose somebody that we're counting on playing some meaningful minutes. And I give our guys an A for effort so far this year because we've had some guys playing out of position. We've had some guys having to step up and playing some minutes that maybe they're not quite ready for against some good talent. You know, we didn't do ourselves any favors in the record category by, you know, scheduling numerous nationally ranked teams, and obviously the OAC is a good team or a good conference with a lot of good teams in it. So 8 for effort. You know, I think it's just really tough to go from there because, you know, everything that I've said, trying to work new guys in, trying to figure out you know, who's going to be able to do what this year. And then the way we have to play, you know, we're not as athletic as most of the teams in our league. We do have talented kids, but the most important thing for us is getting them all on the same page and being able to run our system. That's how we're going to beat these teams. It just takes time to do that.
Mark, Coach talked about the injuries and the illnesses. They've really hit the post players this year. He talked about Grant Fenner, Marshall Crum, Matt Hughes. All forwards have been out at some point this year with some sort of injury or illness. You've been one of the few consistents down low. How has that changed your role so far on the team this year?
I would say the most part would be due to injuries, going from playing the 4 to having to go play the 5 because we had Clayton Schaefer out at the beginning of the year with mono. And then, like you said, Marshall got hurt. So that's kind of – I've had to vary between playing very low post to kind of a more like stretch 4.
Mark, we asked Coach about his thoughts on the season overall. So far, what's your grade of the progression of the season?
Like Coach said, it's hard to give a grade, but when I look at it from a player standpoint, if you look at the progression that we've made from our first practice to where we are with getting everybody on the same page and just getting everybody down and knowing what we want to do, as far as the team goes, I think that progression has gone very well.
Coach, with all the illnesses and injuries that your coaching staff has suffered through this year, what difficulties does that put on a staff, and how do you have to adjust?
Well, next year when we have all these guys back, we'll know exactly what our capabilities are, exactly what to expect. We can game plan the entire offseason for knowing what we're going to have. Offensively, defensively, who we can count on to do what as far as scoring, as far as defense. That being said, this year was the complete opposite. When we lost a couple of guys from last year's team, we asked a couple of guys to leave. That set us up again going into a preseason when, we thought we had a couple of guys like a Grant Finner and we could count on him. And then, the injury took him away at probably the most meaningful portion of the year, and having to make some adjustments. And then, we've had some bright spots. Trey Miller, who's been out the last 3 games with a shoulder injury, ended up starting right away, partly out of necessity, but partly out of his good play. And he did a good job of earning that spot in the preseason. But we didn't know that's, who we were going to be playing with, 2 months before the season. So there's just a lot of challenges when you have an inexperienced team. And it's not just learning how to set a screen and compete at the college level. Obviously for each one of those players, that's a difficulty. But for a staff, trying to know what it is that we're going to do. We always have core values as far as playing great defense, trying to keep teams into a low field goal percentage, which I feel like we've done, rebounding, sharing the ball, and not turning it over, which hasn't been our strength this year. But the positions to put each guy in to where we can be successful, that was a big unknown coming to the season. And right about the time where I felt like we were starting to get some things, figured out, then the injury bug hit us, and we had to make some adjustments. And like Mark said, credit to him for being able to play the 5 now and not playing his natural position. And some other guys are struggling right now, but we've had some really good, Brian McKenzie stepped up. He's probably been one of our most consistent performers for us. Jake Phillips has really been playing well this last month. And again, he's going back and forth from the point guard to the scoring guard because of injury. And Grant struggled a little bit getting back into it, trying to get his shape back and figure out where he fits in the whole scheme of things. Matt Hughes has been, as a freshman, we didn't know how good he was going to be, going into the season, but he's been a nice surprise and one of our most consistent players, outside of that Christmas time period when he was out for a month with a concussion. So, you feel like you got a deck of cards in your hand, and sometimes, they're taken away from you, and sometimes you put them out there, and so right now, I credit our guys because every time they come to practice, they really like each other. It's a great group to be around. They keep working hard. I'm just frustrated for them because I can't do more, not knowing who we're going to have, and sometimes being limited by some injuries and some things we don't have, we can't have any power over.
Coach, we've talked about players you've lost this year throughout the course of the season. Let's talk about a player that you've gained, only playing in his 4th game on Wednesday, Josh Lyle, a guy who we didn't know a whole lot about, transferred in from Eastern Michigan. Besides that, didn't know much about him, just kind of showed up on the roster one day. What can you tell us about him as a player and how he got to Otterbein?
Well, we have a couple guys. Josh is one of them. And through a connection of Coach Miller's and myself, Josh was looking for a home. He stepped away from the game for about a year. And wanted to come back and was looking at it's one of the majors that we have, sports management. He really wants to get into that and finish his degree, and he loves to play basketball. So he played at a very high level up at a school in Michigan, AAU, and then, like you mentioned, Eastern Michigan. So we're happy to have Josh. We're trying to, again, it's kind of like, if he had come back off injury, we're trying to get him into the fold. And that just takes some time. And right now, he's going through a little bit of an injury period, a lower back issue that we're working with. So, he and Matt Chellis. Matt Chellis is another one. I think at the post position, he gives us some athleticism that we didn't necessarily have. And Matt's a local guy, and he had been out of the game for a year as well. So both those guys, while I think they're great additions so far and good in the locker room and bring an element that maybe we didn't have as much before Christmas break. It's taken a while for us to get used to them and for them to, get used to our offense and what we're trying to do defensively. But they're both great guys. I look forward to the future with them. It's it's bright. It's just going to take some time.
Coach, your team is coming off a 105-66 loss to the now 5th-ranked Marietta Pioneers, who keep climbing up the polls and are attempting to be the OAC's first undefeated team since the 1933 Otterbein Cardinals. Would you say that Marietta is the most talented team we've seen all year?
Yeah, I would think so, especially when they play as well as they did the other day. I mean, the credit to our guys. We battled them right there at halftime, and I think – 4 or 5 minutes into the second half, we had it down to 11. We had the ball, looking to make it a 9 or 8 point game, and then a few turnovers, and they hit some threes, and that's what they're just so dangerous offensively, and they do a good job defensively as well. I mean, they're consistent with what they do. They rebound. They have good size. I think they're out rebounding the rest of our league. I think they have a 10.3 rebounding margin on our league. So. Right now, they're as good as anybody I think we've played, and we've played some good teams in Christopher Newport and DePaul and some teams like that. But every one of those guys can score. They can all step outside. They're athletic. They can get to the rim. It ended up being like a 40-point loss, but for us, deep, middle of the second half, we were still, 11, 12, 13, 20 points. I thought our guys did some good things. We made a few mistakes here and there, and when you do that against Marietta right now especially, they're making you pay.
Mark, building off of what Coach said, what is it that the Pioneers do that make them so good?
I think it's for them. It's not like 1 through 5. Their 1 through 8 guys can all score in a variety of ways, so that makes it real hard. Like if we make a mistake, they're going to capitalize on it, and they can do that in so many ways that you just have to be perfect on every possession. And one slip up can mean they hit a wide open 3 if we don't switch fast enough or something like that. So that's what makes them hard.
We'll take our first break of the program here on the season's inaugural Todd Adrian Coaches Show. When we come back, Otterbein has 2 games coming up with Wilmington and Mount Union this week. We'll get Coach and Mark's thoughts on both of them. You're listening to the season's first Todd Adrian Coaches Show here on WOBN 97.5. We'll be right back.
Fewer than 5 out of 100 people give blood. Ever wonder why they do it?
It's the one thing that we can do that we can always afford to do, and hey, you get a snack afterwards. So
snacks are great. I had never knew my blood type, and I found out in doing this that I'm O negative. So there's that added pressure knowing that everyone can use my blood at any time, and so I feel like it's my responsibility.
It's a little extra bragging power too, knowing that you're a universal giver.
Yeah, I'm pretty special.
Call 1-800-RED-CROSS or visit redcrossblood.org to make an appointment today.
I'm Drew Brees, and being a dad means the world to me. And one of the most important things any parent can do is make sure their kids get active at least 60 minutes each day. Studies show that physical activity not only helps kids stay healthy, it can enhance important skills like concentration and problem solving, which can improve academic performance. This means physical activity can help your kids in the most important game of all, life. Learn more at fitness.gov.
Brought to you by HHS.
And we welcome you back here on WOBN 97.5 into the studios at 33 College View for episode 1 of the Todd Adrian Coaches Show. I'm David Kinder. We're joined with Otterbein Junior forward Marc McCuen and the namesake of the show, Todd Adrian. Coach, a pair of big games on the horizon for the Otterbein Cardinals. You got Mount Union Saturday. Coming up tomorrow, you have the Wilmington Quakers. Wilmington comes into the game 1 game ahead of you in the conference standings at 3-5 in the OAC. In the OAC, they're 6-8 overall. Saturday, following the loss, I asked you if you thought you matched up well with the Quakers, and you thought that you didn't. Why is that?
It wasn't necessarily the matchup, but they're trending up right now. They've won 5 of the last 7. The team that we had just probably most of my glare was based on the fact that I believe they had lost to Marietta by just a couple. Not too long ago, and they had just won at Mount Union. So they're playing good basketball. Not that we aren't, but they started off slow, and most of their losses have come early in the season, and now they're kind of hitting their stride. So, it's going to have to. It's not going to be one of those games where you look at the standings and think, oh, they're 6-8. This is a team that we can beat. We have to take everybody seriously, and especially a team like this when, I think three of their players getting the most minutes are seniors, and they have a really good scoring freshman that's doing a good job. And I think it seems to me like from what I've seen, they're just now starting to get everything together and playing pretty good basketball.
Mark, as someone who plays down low, one thing that you can feel good about going into this game, Wilmington no longer has their star forward, Malcolm Hurd III, who was the OAC Player of the Year last year. In both games he played against Otterbein, dropped 42 points combined with 18 boards against the Cardinals in both losses. It has to be nice knowing that he's not going to be guarding you or going up against you in the game tomorrow.
Yeah, that's really nice. I mean, he was by far the best player in the league, both athletically and skill-wise, in my opinion, last year. So it'll be nice not having to deal with that.
Coach, after you've had a chance to watch some film, scout the Quakers, and based on what you know from last year, what can you tell that they do really well or some of their players that we should watch out for tomorrow?
Well, it's not a surprise that they were able to beat Mount Union and that they played Marietta pretty close because they're a similar team. They're athletic. They have 3 kids that can really score the ball, and they can do it individually. They don't have to rely on an offense or things like that. They have some good one-on-one players, much like the gentleman we just talked about. You could do everything right against him, and he'll still score on you. And that's kind of the way they have. They have a couple of seniors in Leppert, and Jackson, I believe is his name, and then Johnson, sorry. And those 2 guys are averaging the most minutes for the team and the most points. So, those fourth-year players and those guys are 21, 22 years old. They've been around the block a time or two, and they know how to generate their own shots. They know how to play at the end of the game, and they've played some close games and won a couple of them. So, yeah, it's it's similar to some of the other teams we've played already in that they like to push the ball. They're quick and athletic. They have some gifted offensive players.
You can listen to tomorrow's basketball game with the Wilmington Quakers right here on 97.5 WOBN from the Reich Center. Tip-off will be at 7:30. Our pregame coverage will start at 7:15. Myself, Jacob Barker, will have all the action. Coach, Wilmington does have the league's worst scoring defense if you look at the stats, giving up 82 points per game. They're also the league's worst team at defending three-pointers, giving up 43% of the long shots attempted on them. When you see numbers like that, any chance we might see Otterbein go for the long ball a little bit more?
Well, I don't know that those defensive numbers. When you look at total numbers, I don't know that that's as much a. It's a real accurate way of telling the way things go. A lot of the reason that they're giving up a lot of points is because they're looking to score a lot of points. They want mass possessions so that they can get shots, and they don't. And the way they play, they're pressuring us, which. They're pressuring everybody. They want to make you take quick shots or turn you over and generate offense that way. Again, using their athleticism and their length and their quickness to their advantage. So it's not that they're a bad defensive team. I think when you look at those things, they're just gambling, and without our starting point guard, these last couple of weeks, we've seen where some of the other teams have hurt us that way. So that's going to be a major emphasis going into this game, is taking care of the ball and dealing with their pressure. If we can do that and get them to play a little bit more our style of game, I think we can have some success. But again, it's going to be, we're going to want to do one thing, and they're going to want us to do another, and whoever wins that battle is going to, I think, win on the scoreboard. It's a concern with a young team and guys coming in and out of the lineup, and again, playing without one of our top guards. It's one of the things that we're going to have to really focus on, and we have to get better at it because that's been our downfall in numerous games so far this year.
You talked about being without one of your guards in Trey Miller III, who's been out for a couple games. Any update on his injury and when we can expect to see him return to the lineup?
Well, we're not planning on it Saturday. We're hopeful. It's possible, but sometime next week for sure. We've been told. And with this, he's been rehabbing really hard, and he's coming along quickly. So, you really just don't know with injuries. I think we're going to have him back in practice today. So, we're looking forward to having him back. Even though he's just a freshman, I think fairly early, he understands what we're trying to do, and with his skill set, he definitely is a meaningful part of what we do.
Mark, among players on the team with at least 20 attempted three-pointers, You have the best three-point field goal percentage among all those players. We talked with Coach about maybe putting up a little bit more three-pointers in this game, and he said it's because of aggressive defense. However, when you see numbers like that out of an opponent, that they're giving up a high percentage of three-pointers, any chance that changes your game a little bit and you might step back and pull up a three?
No, not really. I mean, when I take threes, I try and take them in the flow of the offense, not just when I'm out doing my own thing, which I try not to do. But if it's in the offense and I pop up to the top of the key and they ended up switch and they're both down low and I'm wide open, yeah, I'll take that. But for the most part, no, I'll just keep going with the flow of offense and trying to get the kind of shots that we want.
Coach also talked that we're going to see a lot of defensive pressure out of the Quakers. In the past couple weeks, we've seen a whole lot of teams that really do that full court press against Otterbein. How do you feel like you guys have spent the past few days practicing for that and progressing against the defense?
I think we've gotten better each game dealing with pressure. If you look back at the past couple, each game we've handled it better, and we've just gone more smoothly through dealing with press and being able to know when to back cut and jump stopping and not turning the ball over.
Coach, looking further into the future, after the game with Wilmington, you have Mount Union, another great team in second place in the league. They're 11-4 overall, 7-1 in conference play. They just beat John Carroll. Their past game out there has to be difficult, knowing that there's really never an easy game in this league.
No, it's a great league, and Mount Union's another team that's got depth. They have scores. They're well coached, and they have upperclassmen. That's what I keep telling our guys. Rome wasn't built in a day, and even a program like Marietta, who's undefeated right now, we looked at their record when they were playing freshmen. I believe, back in like 07, 08, they had 10 freshmen and 4 seniors, and during that time period, 2 wins in the OAC. So it just takes time, and our guys have to understand that. We keep preaching patience, we keep preaching individual improvement. Keep preaching team basketball, and those are 3 things that, the first you have to have, because the second 2 take a while to get. Chemistry, learning how to win at this level, it just doesn't happen. And when you look at our counterparts at like the Division I level, and they're playing freshmen and winning, first of all, they're not playing against a lot of really good seniors. If you're a really good player in Division I, you leave after year 1 or 2. So you're not playing against the experience that we're playing against in a Mount Union and Wilmington with their 3 seniors, and Marietta, who's been going through this, and guys in the program 3 and 4 years. But you're also playing with guys that truly start on October 15th, and I don't know if any understand, but the Division I level now, those guys graduate high school, and about a week and a half later, they go to college. And so all summer, they're at their Division I facilities, they're taking classes, and they're working with those coaches. So while you see a Kentucky or a Duke, who not only have talent with 9, McDonald's All-Americans, these freshmen have also been in 4-man workouts since the day they hit campus. And they just changed that rule this last year or 2 to where they can actually be with coaches in the summer now. So even though, their freshmen are first-year, basketball players at the college level and first-year students, they have a huge advantage over our freshmen, because those coaches can start putting that system in June. And our guys, we can't be with them, especially when we're still, even though we're in year 3 with what happened with our roster last year, it's really kind of I feel like our first year with a group of guys that I know that has bought in, that they're going to get the grades they need to get. They're going to stay out of trouble, and they're going to be here as sophomores and as juniors and seniors. So we're playing with true freshman guys that we don't get to talk to or even, have on the court until October 15th. And so going up against guys that are 3rd and 4th year players, that makes a big difference, especially when they're as talented as they are here in the OAC.
Maybe we can get early enrollees to Otterbein sometime soon.
We'll see. The basketball rules won't change. I guess I'll just get to look at them a little bit more if we get them here early.
We're going to take our final break of the program. When we return, as we did with the Tim Dalp Coaches Show, we'll get Coach and Mark's opinions on something other than Cardinal basketball. When we return, we'll settle the debate once and for all. Who's the greatest basketball player of all time? You're listening to the season's first Todd Adrian Coaches Show on 97.5 WOBN. We'll be right back after this.
Hey Westerville, did you know there is only one showcase on WOBN that features country music? I am talking about Campus Country. I'm here every Monday night at 8 playing the best country music. There's always time for country artist news, and on my show, you'll get to hear the newest songs and unreleased songs that you can't hear on those big stations. So tune into Campus Country every Monday night at 8 o'clock right here on your college radio station, 97.5 The Wild Card.
WOBN 97.5 is your seat to Cardinal basketball this season. WOBN will have live coverage of 25 men's and women's basketball games. Be sure to tune in for the pregame show 15 minutes before tip-off and stay with us after the game for stats, analysis, and player and coach interviews. Check out WOBN.net for a complete broadcast schedule.
Would your business survive a disaster? Nearly 2/3 of businesses aren't prepared for an emergency, and 40% of businesses that experience a disaster never recover. Make an emergency plan now before it's too late. For a free online tool that helps you develop an emergency plan to keep your business up and running should disaster strike, visit ready.gov/business. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the American Red Cross, and the Ad Council.
This is Marshall Crum, senior forward on your Otterbein basketball team, and you're listening to Cardinal basketball on 97.5 WOBN, Westerville, Ohio, your source for Otterbein athletics.
When I grow up, I want to be a new pair of blue jeans.
When I grow up, I want to be a kid's first computer.
I want to be a warm fleece on a cold
I want to
day.
be a football
I want to
stadium.
be a bike that races around the country.
I want to be a bench on a forest trail.
When I grow up, I don't want to be a piece of garbage. And if you recycle me, I won't be.
Give your garbage another life. Recycle. Learn how at iwanttoberecycled.org. Brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Today is Saturday.
60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov. A message from USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
I used to be one of those irresponsible guys, always goofing off and acting like a real jerk. Girls wouldn't give me the time of day. Hey, Julie, do you have the time?
Shut up.
Then, 30 days before my 18th birthday, I went down to my local post office and registered with Selective Service. Overnight, I became aware of the man I had suddenly become. Eligible for federal student loans, government jobs, and job training. Responsible and mature. Hi, Julie. Dinner tonight?
I'd love to, Brad.
So register with Selective Service. It's what a man's gotta do.
And we welcome you back to the studios of 33 College View, here for the first episode of the year of the Todd Adrian Coaches Show, which you can listen to every Tuesday right here on WOBN at 5 o'clock. And if you missed anything from today's episode or any of our episodes, you can catch them all in their entirety on WOBN's YouTube page. Coach Adrian and Marc McCuen are in studio with us, and before we left, we promised that Coach and Marc would give their thoughts on the greatest basketball player of all time. We had a chance to talk amongst ourselves in between the break. I said I'll let them use any criteria they want. They can take into account college careers, professional careers, championships won, statistics, anything you want to finally settle the debate. We'll get your guys' opinions. We'll start first with you, Marc, and let's see who you say it is.
I'd have to go and say it's Michael Jordan. And when I look at it from a statistical view and how many seasons he played. Like he played 3 years of college, then he retired once, then he retired again. And I think people who try and compare him to LeBron, in 2 years LeBron will have played the same number of seasons that Jordan has, and he won't be close to him statistically. So when I look at it that way, I'd say Michael Jordan's the best.
So Marc's going with Michael Jordan. Coach Adrian going to throw us a curveball and go with someone other than MJ.
Well, I tell you what, there's a couple different ways to look at it. LeBron James obviously is stating his case, and with a guy his size and what he can do with the ball. I don't know that the game has seen that. Magic Johnson comes to mind. I think he was 6'7", 6'8", point guard, and he revolutionized the position and could do so many things. And LeBron obviously is a great talent, and probably statistically is going to end up being the winner. If you're just going statistics in the long run, with what he's done and what age he's done it at. And then you can look at a guy like Wilt Chamberlain, and with his stats, and obviously being a Kansas guy, I got to believe that he probably is the best ever. But was his advantage, because of his skill and his ability, or because of the rules at the time and just the difference, of size, much like LeBron at his position, that he gained such an advantage over. I guess I'm going a little boxing. With the Mayweather, who is it that they finally decided to make that fight? Mayweather, I can't remember. They just interviewed him this morning. The other boxer, Pacquiao. Yeah, Mayweather Pacquiao. I'm going pound for pound. And having stood next to Michael Jordan and seeing that he's really only about 6'4" tall, just blew me away. That a guy that is of average height. He can jump, but there's a lot of athletes in that league that can really elevate. So I think when you add all that together with his stats and what he did at Carolina, what he was able to do at the Bulls, I just don't know that. I don't know that you can really argue that when you have a guy of average height in that league and not the biggest, not the strongest, but his will to win, and just at times. He just did exactly that, and I guess being in my impressionable age in the 80s and watching him as much as I did and not being able to see some of the other players, I remember Bird and Johnson and those matchups and the Bad Boys of Detroit when I was younger, and how good their teams were. And I don't know if you put anybody against the Celtics, any teams that are as good as they were at Showtime in Los Angeles. My dad and I used to watch him. He was a Larry Bird fan, and I was, Magic and then those kind of things. But if you're just talking player, and I go pound for pound, I got to think it's Michael Jordan with everything that he was able to accomplish at his size. And it's as a coach, you see a lot of players and you see a lot of things. And to watch him in the 80s was about as impressive as I think any basketball player can be. Especially consider that he wasn't that much more physically gifted, I think, than anybody else he was playing against. Sells it for me.
So the debate is final then. Throughout the rest of history, we have a consensus by both Marc McCuen and Coach Adrian that it is Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time.
How about you? Who do you think is the greatest of all time?
Well, I really like the history of sports and the older guys. And I'm one of the few guys that might try to defend the Wilt Chamberlain case. I do enjoy Wilt. And you bring up a good point that maybe the competition level wasn't the greatest in the late 50s and into the 60s when he was breaking into his career, starting out at Kansas and then with the Philadelphia Warriors into the 76ers. But I'm not sure if you can hold that against him. I mean, he was given an opportunity with what he had and scored 50 points on average for 2 consecutive seasons and averaged a triple-double for his career.
Pretty impressive, no doubt.
So maybe the debate isn't final yet.
Probably not.
Well, we certainly appreciate everyone tuning in here on WOBN for the first ever Todd Adrian Coaches Show. You can listen to next week's episode right here on WOBN on Tuesday at 5. We will be rejoined with Coach Adrian and another player, not yet to be named, but stay tuned. We'll figure that out. Also, join us tomorrow when we'll be live from the Reich Center as the Cards battle Wilmington. Tip-off is at 7:30. Join us for pregame coverage at 7:15. If you missed anything from today's show, you can listen to the show in its entirety on WOBN's YouTube page. For Coach Adrian and Marc McCuen, this is David Kinder saying so long till next time.